What is going on, guys? It's the Mad Dragon. So the Six Nations is over, and there's been a lot of talk about the Lions coming up. So what I thought might be fun to do today is to create my own Lions team. This is something I've never done on the channel. I don't really know how I'm going to go about it. So what I'm going to do is sort of do it like my Team of the Week videos, but rather than doing 15, I'm going to do a 23-man squad of who I would like to see on the field at any one time, and sort of go through the players. This might not necessarily be the best players in that position, but I'm going to try and actually create a team and try and create the best team that I can and go through why I think they'd work well together. It's going to be a totally different thing, so it's going to be something completely new, so take it with a pinch of salt if it ends up looking terrible. I've had a look at some of the teams that people have come up with online, and different Lions teams that people have come up with. Some of them have been really surprising to see some of the players that have managed to get in their teams, so make sure you drop yours down in the comments. So let's start off with the front row for mine. I'm not really sure what order I'm going to do it in. I might mix up the order a little bit. So some of these will be very similar to my team of the tournament, because a lot of them came from the home nations for that team of the tournament. So in the front row at loosehead, I think has got to remain Hugh Jones, as I did in the team of the tournament. I think he's played exceptionally through the Six Nations, so really think he deserves to have that position at the loosehead. Similarly to the tight head in that front row, Tige Furlong has been absolutely standout in the Six Nations. I think he's probably the best tight head in that tournament. He made my team of the tournament. I think he made a lot of people's sort of Lions team as well. I think people are really liking Tige Furlong in the minute. A lot of weight, definitely someone you want in that front row. So the main change to link these two together is going to go down to the hooker. A couple of options here. One I thought could have been George Turner. I thought George Turner had a very good tournament. Only really got sort of bested when they played the Ireland game. But as a player, I think he's doing very, very well. But I think in that front row, I would like to have a more cohesive front row. So I definitely want to have 2 out of the 3 to be from the same team. So I'm going to pick Ken Owens as my hooker. He's been very consistent through the Six Nations. That the line-out work has been really, really good for him. And to be fair, an awful lot of the scrums that I've had for Wales have been very, very strong. They've really held them up well. And any time that the scrums have gone wrong for Wales normally comes from the scrum half not bringing the ball out the back of the scrum, or a prop collapsing it. Very rarely anything to do with Ken Owens. So for me, at hooker, I'm going to pick Ken Owens. Moving further back to the locks department, there's definitely a lot of different ways you could do the locks here. For me, I'm going to stick very similar to what I did of the team of the tournament. I'm going to put Ian Henderson in the number 4 shirt. He can play 4 or 5, so he could have gone in either position, but for me, Ian Henderson has been a bit of a standout lock this tournament. I went through some of his stats for the team of the tournament. He had the second most turnovers and the second most line-out wins in the tournament. I think he's playing really well. I think a couple of people here might want a Tige, but across the board in terms of stats, Ian Henderson seems to have beaten him in most, so I think he's in very good form, and I think you should definitely be picking a team based on their form they're currently in. Number 5, I'm going to stick with Hugh Jones, with a bit of a caveat of that I'm going to make him my captain for my Lions team. Now, I do think, even as a Wales supporter, I do genuinely believe there are probably better number 5s in terms of technical play and on-the-field play. I actually reckon there's probably better number 5s, but in terms of captaincy, that extra little bit that Hugh brings, I think he's really good, and he's actually in a relatively good form. He definitely played well in the first and third round of the tournament, and he even did quite well against France, even in their last game, even though they lost that one. I still think he's a very good player, and the captaincy role he brings. If he wasn't captain, maybe I would look here to moving Henderson to 5 and a Tige at 4, just so you've got a bit of a breakdown co-op going on there. But for me, as Hugh is captain, I think I need him in the team in that number 5 position, and Ian Henderson in the number 4 shirt. On to the back row. I think this is going to be very similar to the team of the tournament. Again, a lot of people have had different mix-ups here. A lot of people have put in Tom Curry, which is not a bad pick, to be honest. Tom Curry actually played well, bar the Scotland game, so I think people would want him in. Navidi and Tiprick have also played very well in this tournament, but it's just difficult to get in this back row. A lot of these flanker positions and the number 8s have played very well. So for me at 6, I'm going to give to Tadhg Beirne. He's played in 4, 5 and 6 through the tournament. His stats are through the roof. Top 10 carries, most turnovers in the tournament, and 3rd most lineouts won, so he's a bit of a demon all over the field. He's up for player of the tournament, so I think he's got to go in that number 6 shirt. Over to number 7, like I said, maybe Tom Curry could have gone in there, but for me it has to remain Hamish Watson. I think he's been absolutely superb through this tournament. 2nd most carries, top 10 turnovers, and huge meters made with the ball. I think from the back of a maul or a back of a scrum, he will be a bit of a monster, and you know how many people it takes to tackle Hamish Watson. So I think in terms of a technical ability, you've got there a 6 and 7 combo in terms of big turnovers, big line-out presence. I think they're going to be a real good combo together, so I'm going to keep that exactly the same. And finally, to the number 8 position, I am trying to keep in mind things about injuries and people that are missing, rather than just picking who I think would generally be the best. I am trying to keep in mind injuries, so I think maybe people would have gone for CJ Stander here, but of course he's now gone into retirement, so no CJ Stander. This 3 would have gone down to Matt Fagerson or Faletau. Matt Fagerson out with his own injury, but again, I think a lot of people will agree with me here. Faletau needs to be that starting number 8. Been very consistent through the tournament. 3rd most carries, top 10 meters made, top 3 tackles in the tournament. Is very, very good. He's a good all-round workhorse, so I think he's going to complete my scrum in that number 8 position. On to the backs, of course. No DuPont going to be taking that scrum half shirt with a Lions team. So let's look a little bit further back to start off with. Let's start off with the fly half. Fly half's going to be a very competitive position. I think a lot of people I've seen have wanted Bigger or Finn Russell. Has also been another big name out there. For me, Finn Russell's discipline letting him down a little bit, but we know how good the running play is. Dan Bigger definitely coming into good form. I can see why a lot of people want Dan Bigger. But the first 2 games of the tournament in the Six Nations, he was definitely struggling. I saw a lot of people, including myself, was thinking maybe he would be withdrawn from that team and have Sheedy in. So for me, I'm going to again stick with consistency. I think in a Lions team, you want someone you know is going to get the points. You want that percentage kicking. You want someone who's going to play well. I'm going to stick with Johnny Sexton as my fly half. Moving then back to the scrum half, I think a halfback partnership is very, very important. In a team that is an amalgamation of multiple teams put together, you want a halfback partnership that works well. So for me, I would definitely want a scrum half. A lot of people might want Ali Price here, but I think you need an Irish scrum half. Both Gibson Park and Conor Murray have been playing very well in this tournament, especially in the latter stages of the tournament. They were working very well, really fighting for that number 9 shirt. To me, out of the 2 of them, I would go for experience. I'm going to go for Conor Murray at my scrum half. I think he's doing very well recently. He's doing well, especially in box kicks. Haven't seen an awful lot of people managing to charge down box kicks, whereas Ali Price has certainly had a couple charge down. But I think at 9 and 10, you definitely want experienced working together to have a much more impactful on the team. So at 9 and 10, Conor Murray and Johnny Sexton for me. And finally, that back line, I'm going to keep exactly the same as my team of the tournament. Duhan van der Merwe going to go on that left wing. I think he's played very well in this tournament. He's a big, big man, especially when you're in a Lions team. You know going to Southern Hemisphere Rugby is a big, impactful team. You're going to have to work well. So Duhan van der Merwe definitely got the size advantage. He's the top try scorer of the Six Nations and also the most tackle breaks. So I think on that wing, he's going to be a bit phenomenal. So I definitely have to give him that number 11 shirt for me. Inside centre at 12, I'm going to stick with Robbie Henshaw. I like the ability for him to move between 12 and 13 depending on injuries or yellow cards or whatever you have going on. I like the idea of him being interchangeable. Another one up for player of the tournament, playing absolutely amazing. 4th most carries. He's only had 1 penalty in the entire tournament against him, and also the tackle rate at centre is a big deal, especially in a Lions tour. 87% tackle rate, not too shabby. So for me, Robbie Henshaw has to remain at that 12 position. Outside centre to me, again, we'll go to George North. This is mainly for the ability to swap positions. We know George North has been playing well at outside centre. He's also playing well on the right wing at Osprey, so I definitely think there's a good movement there. If a winger goes off injured, if Duhan goes off injured, you can move a winger to left or right, and then you can put George North on the left wing, have a new centre come on. I think it's a good move. I think he'll work well in a team, as well as the size and weight advantage, sort of similar to Duhan van der Merwe. We saw the damage he had in that France game. I think he's going to play very well, so to me, George North got to take that outside centre shirt. Right wing, to me, there was only really one man. A couple of people I've seen here have put down Anthony Watson. I think it's not a terrible move. Anthony Watson, definitely a bit of a standout winger in that England team for them. Some people actually put Darcy Graham in their Lions team, which isn't a bad choice. Darcy Graham hasn't played poorly at all, but to me, there's a few points there that I think there's just better people out there for the right wing. To me, it has to stay Louis Rees-Zammit. I think he's superb. Another one for player of the tournament. We know how dangerous he can be. He got the 2nd most try scorers just after Duhan van der Merwe in that France game. But throughout the tournament, I think he had like 3 tries disallowed for various reasons, so he could have got even more. I think he had a fantastic tournament, and he's got the ability to just turn a game on its head. Even when you're losing, he can turn it into a winning game. The breakaways, the interceptions we saw, I think he's really good. So to me, Louis Rees-Zammit has to retain that 14. And finally, at fullback, there's only one guy. This can be everyone getting mad that I didn't pick him for my team of the tournament, but he absolutely would have to be the Lions team. In fact, he's one of the most consistent I've seen in other people's Lions teams. It has to be Stuart Hogg. Coming back into form, it's so nice to see Stuart Hogg at the top of his game again. The kicking from him has been fantastic. Being able to fill in at fly half as well if you need him to in terms of an injury, I don't think is a bad move to have when playing a game, especially against Southern Hemisphere. Injuries can be picked up very easily. The counter runs he's been very good at, dodging players, and I mean the kicking, again, I gotta say it again, the distance kicking, the spiral kicks the boy manages is fantastic. So for me, Stuart Hogg gonna finish that off at fullback. So that's going to be the starting 15, but to mix it up a little bit, we will, of course, move on to the subs. The subs I would like to see in a game, and this is where I think it might differ a little bit from other people's videos. I think it would be a bit nice just to go through some substitutes. Replacement hooker, for me, the last name that I would have maybe put in the starting 15, it's going to go to George Turner. I think he had a great tournament. The lineouts are working well, bar that Ireland game. He got himself tries when he needed to. The back of the maul, I can see Gatland watching what sort of Pivac did and what also happened with the Scotland team in the Italy game, using the maul to get your advantage and getting your hooker over the try line. We know George Turner will be good in that position, and running play, also very good with the ball in hand. In fact, David Cherry could have got in there, maybe, but to me, George Turner as a starting hooker, I'm going to go with George Turner at the 16 shirt. Replacement loose head, definitely a couple of options here. A lot of people might want starting loose heads. To me, Maka Vunipola hasn't been super standout. I'm not even sure if he's had an injury with his ankle. He was sort of looking a little bit shaky towards the end of the tournament. Cian Healy could be another one that could go in there. To me, I would want impact from the bench. I want someone I know's got the impact from the bench. So to me, I'm going to give this to Ollie Kebble. He's a big man, a lot of weight on him. Again, like I said, sort of similar to Tige Furlong. Going to Southern Hemisphere, going in scrums and mauls, you want weight. And I think Ollie Kebble definitely brings that. His actual performance in the games has been really good. He's not afraid to come on from the bench and make an impact. I think it's very good. I think he's a really good player. That might be one a lot of people disagree with, but to me, I'm going to pick Ollie Kebble. And finally, to finish off that front row replacements, I'm going to give it straight off the bat to Tom Francis. A couple of people might pick Kyle Sinclair. I think Kyle Sinclair was actually very good in terms of scrummaging. But to me, Tom Francis, through most of the tournament, rounds 1 through 3 at least, I did see him topping the boards in terms of tackle rates. He was doing very well defensively. I did see him in the England game, patched up like the Michelin man. He's not afraid to stay on the field even with an injury. He's going to keep it going. Scrum rates have been good. There's been very few penalties going against Tom Francis. I actually think more probably went against Wyn Jones than Tom Francis in that Wales scrum. So for me, I'm going to give it to Tom Francis. In the 19 shirt, going to mix it up a little bit here, but I think for this one, I'm going to have Itoje in my replacement lock. And the reason for this is Itoje definitely had a bad game against Wales, but I actually think that through the tournament, he's been relatively sound. I think people see a lot more negatives than the positives that people do. In the France game, he was very instrumental, even got the winning try in that game. He plays the 50-50 game. I actually think he does a lot better when he just takes that little step back away from the 50-50 chances. He definitely has a big impact in this game. This also has a double movement for me. He can play lock, and of course that's where we see him an awful lot in the England shirt, but he has also played flanker. So to me, coming on from the bench, whether you lose your 4, 5, your 6 position, you can put Itoje on, and also having Tige Byrne in the starting 15, I think it means no matter where you had injury potential, I think Itoje would be able to fill in there, and you could even have Tige Byrne move. You could even have Ian Henderson and Alan Wyn Jones coming off, moving Tige Byrne and Itoje into that 4 and 5 shirt. I think it gives you a lot of malleability in the team. So for me, I'm going to give Itoje that shirt. Into number 20, a lot of people here will tend to have replacement flanker or replacement number 8. For me, I'm going to go for both. I'm going to have Tom Curry in my 20 shirt. Again, this is sort of similar to Itoje. Bad game against Scotland, but managing to pick up through the tournament. I thought he was devastating against Wales. The charge downs he was doing were very, very good. I think he's playing a really good tournament. He definitely saw how bad he was in that Scotland game and knew he had to turn his game around. He's gone back to the drawing board. He's managed to sort himself out. The other advantage of Tom Curry is he has had experience in playing both flanker positions and at number 8. So again, this to me comes down to someone giving away too many penalties or an injury coming in later in that game. Tom Curry can pretty much fill any position in that back row, and I think that works out really well for him. So for me, I'm going to pick Tom Curry. Replacement scrum half in the 21 shirt. Like I said, a couple of people that were going to put their hands up for scrum half. To me, the Wales scrum halves haven't performed as I would like to have seen them of. This could have been Hardy. I'm not sure about Hardy still out with injury or not. I did try and find out, but I don't think he'll make it back in time for a Lions tournament. Ben Youngs, again, started out bad, slowly increased. I don't think anyone would have Dan Robson in there. This could absolutely go to Jameson Gibson Park. I think he had a good tournament. But for me, I'm going to give this to Ali Price. As much as I would like to see Ali Price run a little bit more, and there are charge downs happening with some of his box kicks, I think the speed he gets the ball out, he had the most passes in the tournament. He's definitely good at recycling the ball when it gets to the back of the ruck. The speed he was getting it out, helping the Scotland team move forward, I think could be really useful in the second half. Teams are getting tired. You want someone to get the ball in hand and get it out of those rucks super quick. So for me, it has to go to Ali Price. 22 I've got as the replacement fly half. A couple of people here I saw in other Lions teams that people had mentioned. One was Farrell. A couple of people wanted Farrell, which was a little surprising. Farrell's kicking percentage hasn't been great in this tournament, and even the impact on the field I don't think has been superb. I'm sure he'll probably make it into the Lions team in real life, but for me, I don't think I've seen enough from Farrell to warrant him getting that shirt. A couple of people here will definitely want to see people, maybe a Finn Russell, maybe a Dan Bigger, who was definitely improving towards the end of that tournament. For me, I want to see someone that I know has the turnaround from the bench to really destroy a team once they come on the field. And to me, there was no one better in this tournament than Sheedy. I think he was brilliant in so many of Wales's games, even games that weren't going well. The Scotland and Ireland game jumped to mind, having to pull Dan Bigger off after 45, 50 minutes. You watch Callum Sheedy come on in that second half. The impact he has, a totally different dimension, and sort of similar in the way Wales work. Having Johnny Sexton on is a very different fly half to Callum Sheedy. So I think Sheedy coming on mixes up that team completely. Second half could be completely different for that Lions team. So for me, my replacement fly half goes to Callum Sheedy. And finally, the 23 shirt. This is where a lot of people will disagree, I imagine. For my team, the way I've created it, for me, I wanted to have a solid centre. Someone that I know would be able to play both centre positions, but maybe have focus on one area more than others. But also, if there was problems with wingers, he could go on wingers down to speed. So a couple of people here, maybe Slade, but I believe he's going to be out with an injury. Halaholo hasn't done terrible coming on from the bench. He's definitely got a good defensive work rate. But in the last couple of games, there were far too many penalties for me coming on from the bench. Jonathan Davis wasn't doing an awful lot. Chris Harris was definitely one I thought about. But for me, the impact we saw from the bench in the Italy game, he definitely doesn't have the impact from the bench. As a starting outside centre, I think he's very, very good. But the impact from the bench wasn't enough. And another name I had in there was Ringrose, who I also think is out with an injury, but of course is very good when he gets in that outside centre channel. But for me, at 23, I imagine a lot of people will disagree here. For me, I'm going to go for Hugh Jones. The impact we got to see him have on the Italian game, making great meters, finding the gaps, getting himself tries, giving good offloads. I think he's a real fast player. We know he likes that outside centre position, so whether George North spent the entire game on the field, or whether if one of them went off, we know Hugh Jones can play inside centre even though he prefers outside centre, and if there were injuries on the wings, I think he's rapid enough that he could fit on the wing, and you could just let him run forwards if he needed to. I think he's got a lot of diversity in the team, and if you want to look at teams that hold up defensively and how he works against them, when you look back at the Ireland-Scotland game, he came on in that game in the 65th minute, got himself a try, really knows how to get through strong defences when they manage to hold up, which is sort of similar to the South African teams. So for me, I'm going to pick Hugh Jones. But there we have it, guys. That is going to be my Lions 23. There's a bit of a mix-up for this one for me. This is a brand new sort of style video of trying to create a team I would like to see on the pitch all in one go. But of course, there will be differences between your teams and my teams. I've already seen a couple of people disagreeing with my team of the tournament. So, of course, as I always say, make sure you drop down in the comments your teams. It's all well and good to find problems with my teams, but if I don't know your teams, we can't look at each other's and see how it gets on. So make sure you drop it down in the comments who you want to see in the Lions team. Who would your 1 to 15 or 1 to 23 be, depending on how much time you've got to fill in a comment down below. But it has been such a good Six Nations. I've thoroughly enjoyed it. I've got a whole bunch of videos on the channel. I've created an entire playlist for the Six Nations 2021 on the channel. So if you want to go back and review and find out how terribly my predictions were or what have you, make sure you go back through that playlist and check it out. And if you have enjoyed the videos through the channel, through this tournament, make sure you leave this video a like, and make sure you subscribe to the channel, because I'm sure I'll come up with some new rugby videos that I can come up with. I have got one idea at the minute that I'm trying to work on in the background, so make sure you subscribe just to keep up to date when all the videos come out on the channel. I hope you've all enjoyed today, guys. I will see you next time. Bye-bye.